Ladies and gentlemen, we are back in 4K. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to work, but we're all going to learn it together, I guess. So, just got done recording my first episode special that will release first Friday in October. So, I already made one mistake though. Noticed it afterwards. Gonna fix that for the next one. But anyway, yeah, we're up and going with 4K video now. So, check it out. Yeah, we got some big things coming up in the future for October. Of course, you know what October is, right? Oh yeah, yeah. So we're gonna do some stuff. If you know anybody affected by breast cancer, if you know any ladies at all, they can be affected. So this is gonna be some good content. At least a couple of good episodes dealing with Breast Cancer Awareness Month and the battle that they go through and how you can deal with it and stuff like that. So it's gonna be good. I mean, man, October, my favorite time of year. You guys all know that. Football season's well underway. I am especially in a good mood because technically right now I am on vacation, and there is no better feeling than being on vacation. You guys know that. Am I right? Yeah, no better feeling. So, have some free time. We got a crew up here working on the house right now, doing some stuff that is just beyond my talent level. I think we kind of talk about that in the next episode, but that's that. But yeah, so what I wanted to do with this episode was recently, what was that, last month? I got asked to go over to Jessup to the Steve Brown Art Center podcast. And I encourage you guys to go listen to it there. They filmed it, they recorded it, they did a very nice job with that, talking to Jim and Dale over there about all kinds of different things. And it was nice to be on the other side of the microphone for once, not having to ask questions and interview people, but they asked a lot of good questions, and it was really it was an encouraging time for me. So I wanted to kind of maybe release some of that footage here, but I would definitely encourage you guys to go listen to it on their platform. I'm not trying to steal their views or their clicks or anything like that, but I believe they've got a great episode that will probably be up by the time this episode airs with a former guest of ours, Keith Wheeland. They're actually getting Keith Wheeland, who's running for Buchanan County Supervisor, and his opponent, I think it's Rick. Oh, I think his first name's Rick Wolfcool from Independence. They're going to have them on at the same time. Not really a debate, but at least give them a chance to talk about their stance on the issues and stuff like that. I think they were going to try and do it live on YouTube and then release it later as a podcast. But so yeah, they did good over there. So I wanted to take that interview and I wanted to release it as an episode of my own, just in case there's some of my listeners that didn't go over and listen to it there. So I was able to do that. So I'm gonna throw that in. That'll be the main part of this video episode, and I thought it'd be a good way to at least try out the new camera on part of an episode instead of doing a whole episode at a time. So hopefully it works out. I know this camera stuff is way more complicated. I got a whole couple pages of notes right here on trying to do advanced settings and try and get it, as crisp and clear as possible. But your computer has to be able to handle it as well. And I spent the better part of this morning recording 4K video, and you can see in a little window it says CPU usage. It would jump all the way up to 90%. And then it would almost shut the program down and overload. And so I had to mess with quite a few things, and I think I got it figured out. I think this should be a pretty sharp image for you guys, but I think we've had a really good response with the what is up highlights. That's been good. That was supposed to be one play every week, and it's turned into quite a bit more than that. But I know it's definitely making the rounds, and kids and parents alike are really enjoying that. So our team just keeps getting better. They definitely got things they can work on every single week and get better and better. But I just love watching the team progress, and sky's the limit for where we're gonna go, I think. So just got to keep working hard. Same thing, JV, got to work hard. Got to keep at it. Got to keep getting better. Everything will fall into place if everyone just keeps working hard, for sure. Are on a roll, doing good. Man, I stayed up and watched that whole game the other night. If I'm up past 9, it's something special, let me tell you. My goodness. I guess that's just what happens when you get my age. I don't know. For those of you who were wondering, I know I said and put on social media that I would be preaching last Sunday. What would that be? The 22nd. And I actually did not. We've had some health issues going on in the house, and there was just some things I couldn't avoid. So I did not preach. That sermon is ready. Hopefully in the future I will get to do that one. It's a real good one about worry and fear and anxiety and all that stuff. So I hope to get the opportunity to preach that sometime in the future. But sometimes things come up and you got to deal with them, and that's what happened there. So not trying to get out of it. I definitely want to preach that one and have you guys see that for sure, because it's good stuff. So we'll get to that at some point for sure. If you're new to the podcast, I would definitely encourage you like, follow, subscribe wherever you're at on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button, all that good stuff. Go to our social media on Facebook and Instagram. Follow those pages, man. We do giveaways. I know we got a fall giveaway coming up. I know we do. It's in the works right now. We're trying to dial in what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what all we're going to give away. And that's the only place to get involved in those is on our social media on Facebook and Instagram. So get on there, follow that stuff, share that stuff with your friends. We're getting new followers all the time. The numbers keep growing, so that tells me you guys are doing that. I think we're about to hit 500 Facebook followers, which to me is a large number. Maybe it's not to anyone else, but 1 year into this thing, we're at 500. I think we're about to hit 200 on Instagram, which I get. That's kind of the younger audience. Not on TikTok yet. Sorry, Brock. I'm just not there yet. I'm got too many irons in the fire. So, but yeah, share this thing with your friends, with your family. If you want stickers are free. Just let me know. Send me an email, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, or comment on our social media. I'll get you a sticker for free. We still got shirts. There's a good example of a pink one right there. We got pink ones for the ladies if they like those. October. Come on, guys. This is it. Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Let's get some pink shirt orders. We don't make money off of this stuff, guys. The hats, the shirts, we're basically just trying to get this stuff out there at cost. This is not a money-making venture for me. This is not, if something were to happen and this blew up and I had a huge employment opportunity, yeah, maybe then that's a thought, but that's not why I'm getting into this thing. I make ambulances for a living, and that's what I plan on doing until the day I die, probably. So no, we're not charging an arm and a leg for this stuff. We got shirts, hats, whatever you want, size, color, we'll hook you up. Sarah does a good job. We can make them custom to order, or if you just want one of our signature black shirts, we got plenty of those in stock, okay? So just let us know. But I appreciate all the support so far, guys. It means a lot to us. So on this episode, I just want you to enjoy the interview that I did on the Steve Brown Arts Center podcast. Enjoy.
The birthplace of the Bohemian Revolution from Cowork 591 Studios. We are the Bohemian Reformation, and this is the Steve Brown Arts Center Podcast Network. With producer Blake Tempest and co-host Dale Reaver, I'm Jim Gillespie, and this is Jessup News for August 26, 2024. Tonight we talk with Bubba Simmons, and we ask him what is up. We review the recent events of the Steve Brown Arts Center. We talk about the next 80 days of the election, Jessup News, and we give our weekly update. The Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that has a vision for artists, young and old alike, to have the opportunity to better themselves while helping to build the skills of those around them. The long-range vision is to house a rural artist residency program for professional and emerging artists in all areas of the arts and the humanities. Artists will be offered accommodations and studio space in exchange for a contribution of labor and maintenance of the buildings and grounds that they live. First off, welcome, Bubba.
Thank you.
It's good to be here. To have you on. Well,
it's awesome to be invited.
Yeah, well,
feel special.
You should feel special. Thank you.
Put you right to the head of the line.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I was on Facebook, and your wife did a nice job of marketing you, and I tried to contact you, and accidentally, I think, contacted Ross Steinbrunn.
Yes.
And you were kind enough to get back to me and said, I think you're trying to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
First off, tell us about What Is Up. Tell us about your podcast.
Well, I had this theory that everybody's interesting. You know what I mean? A lot of garbage makes it to reality TV, and people want to see what's going on with people's lives that are just completely dysfunctional. And so I'm like, well, we have this thing where we want to know what's going on in people's lives, in their families. And yeah, everybody's interesting. If you let them share their stories, their experiences, their opinions. So that's kind of where it started. I wanted it to be more meaningful than that. And I was actually speaking to the youth group at Jessup Bible Fellowship one night 2 years ago. And when I left there, God was telling me, like, you need to do more of that. You know, some people aren't like us that are willing to speak and be in front of a camera or a microphone. Mm-hmm. Some people really have a problem with that. So if you don't have a problem with that, God was telling me you need to do something more. And that's when these kids at the Wapsie High School, Zach and Riker, they started this little podcast called Talk of the Tribe. And it was just all things Wapsie Valley, sports and school. And I was like, oh my goodness, I think that's it. I think God wants me to do a podcast. So I was like, well, I'll hop on the computer, find out how to do it, how to start it. And I had that idea that everybody's interesting. And I also thought, you know, a lot of crazy things have happened in the last 5 or 10 years that sometimes just have you asking, like, what is up with... And you fill in the blank. Yeah. We don't need to get political. Everyone has their own opinions. And I was like, okay, so that kind of fits with that theory. And then I thought, well, my worldview is I'm going to point people up, because I just think that is proven itself time and time again, a standard of living that's not going to shift the blows of the wind of the spirit of the age. It's just not going to go up and down and change. It's kind of a moral standard that I think we would all be better off if we lived by that. So my worldview comes into play no matter who I'm interviewing. That's really it. It's kind of threefold. What is up is I'm always talking to somebody. What is up? Like, there's been some crazy things that have happened. How do you feel about it? And then the other thing is I'm going to point people to what I think is...
Okay, so you start with your kitchen table? Is that where you...
Well, it's in the basement.
Okay, so you have an office, and did you have to buy any special equipment or register with anybody, or how does that work?
So, when you jump on the internet and you say, okay, how do you start a podcast? You got to decide, are you going to do video like you guys are doing an excellent job with? I'm not, unless I'm using my camera on my laptop by myself. I don't do it with a guest. But you find out quickly, what kind of computer do you need that's capable of recording audio? Do you want nice microphones? Do you want USB microphones? And you could literally start it with a laptop and a USB mic, and you're ready to go.
Okay.
There's free recording software on the internet. I use Audacity, and then you can go in and you can trim out things that you don't want when you're done. Like you said, Richard Simmons. it's Richard Seaman, but that's okay.
Excuse me.
That is fine.
I'm looking at you. Did I write that down?
Yeah.
He got it too. And so like you can go right in on one of those free versions of software, and you could trim that out. I could re-record it and throw it right in. And I was like, well, that's kind of simple. And you just got to have enough storage space or an external hard drive. You start saving these episodes, and then really, since I don't do video, I still wanted it on YouTube. So basically, I just ask. My wife will come downstairs in the little studio we set up, and she'll take a couple pictures while we're interviewing. And then I had these shirts made, so every guest gets a shirt just for coming on, and she'll take a picture of us kind of holding the shirt. And then I asked them to send me a few pictures that, explain their life or maybe something we talked about. And I just put that into a slideshow and put that on YouTube. So they hear the audio, they see these pictures, and that's how you get on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Rumble, all that stuff.
Okay. So the expense is pretty minimal.
It was very minimal at first. Yeah. I borrowed microphones from people in the worship band at church. Our pastor loaned me the podcast, the main device there, and that was it. And I think we went about 6 months before I said, okay, now I can buy my own stuff. This is actually it's growing. So then I invested my own money, but it was nice to have friends that loaned me stuff in the beginning. Yeah.
So let's go back, Bubba, to the beginning. Forgive me for calling you Richard.
That's okay.
Forgive me.
That's all right.
You're in Dutch twice now, and it's only been 5 minutes.
I know it. So, Bubba, tell us, you're from Louisiana originally.
Yes,
tell us
sir.
how you ended up in Iowa.
Oh, my goodness. It was, I was 13, and I had no intention of leaving, and my mom met a guy, became my stepdad, and he actually grew up in Dewar, went to Hawkeye Tech for auto body, and then he went down south. Him and my mom met, and we had a couple rough years where our house got broke into a couple different times, and I think my stepdad's dad, my grandpa, was having some health issues, and they said it's time to move to Iowa. And it really was a great choice, because the city, we were talking about Slidell, Louisiana. You take a kid from Slidell and you put him in Dunkerton. That is a much smaller, safer environment than the bigger city. You can still get in plenty of trouble in a small town, Iowa, but I'm thankful for it. I mean, I met my wife here, came to the Lord here. Everything good about me happened here in the Midwest and small town Iowa, and it wouldn't have happened if we had stayed. So even though I was kicking and screaming the whole way up here as a 13-year-old, it was the best decision my parents ever made, for sure.
You ended up in Dunkerton, and you mentioned your wife. Tell us about your family, your wife and children.
Oh, man. Sarah, my wife of... what's this going to be, 23 years here in November. We got 4 kids. Bridget, she's in college. Timothy, he'll be a senior this year. James, he's a sophomore. And Grace, our youngest, is going into junior high. I don't deserve what I have, guys. I do not. And it's a day doesn't go by that I don't thank God for that. We're not going to get too into it, but, I was definitely headed down a different road, and I end up with this wife and family. Me and Sarah were high school sweethearts in Dunkerton, and we did everything wrong. Everything you can do in your typical high school relationship, we did everything wrong and did a lot to hurt each other. It's an absolute miracle. I never intended on marrying her. So the fact that we ended up getting married is a testimony to God and what he can do with a couple of just broken kids. It's truly powerful. And my kids see that, and they understand that, and it's a testimony to them.
It's always interesting to see how much do you share with your kids about when you were growing up, because you don't want them to respect you and like you, and stay out of trouble themselves and stuff.
Right. Yeah. We had to be real honest with them and just tell them, like, this is how we were. That there was a turning point at about 20 years old, and we chose to go a different way, but we did everything.
So after high school, what did you decide to do? As far as, like, did you go to school or did you go to work? Or?
I did. I didn't really know what I don't know how you expect some of these kids to know what they want to do. I struggled with that, but I did end up going to Hawkeye for 3 years, didn't graduate, which is, I don't know how you do that. It's a 2-year school.
Blake says anybody can graduate from there.
That's right.
So,
I got within a semester of graduating police science, and I was just really losing interest, and then they canceled a couple of my final classes, and so I was like, I really don't want to do this. My wife, she didn't go to college. She always wanted to go for photography, but she had to get right into the workforce, and we just both worked. That's it. And then we kind of really got involved in church, and that's when things kind of took off. Started having kids right away, So
where did you end up working?
I went to Omega Cabinets. That was kind of my solid job. Worked there for 15 years. Thought I was going to retire there, and then I had neck surgery. I kind of out of the blue one year. I just started having a bunch of nerve pain and stuff. I didn't have an accident or anything like that. But the doctor, of course, he says something about, did you play football? And she goes, oh, don't feed into it. Of course he did. And he's going to tell you all about it, how great he was. And so, I ended up having to have 2 discs replaced, just causing a lot of problems. And when I was off for 2 months, I just got to thinking, I think I want to do something else. So I left Omega for City Laundry in Oelwein. And I thought, that's going to be outdoors, 4-day work week. I thought I'd love it, and I didn't love it. I was there 6 months. And one of the first stops on my route when I was working for City was at Lifeline Emergency Vehicles. And they had a big CNC router table that they were just ready to fire up, and they didn't have an operator. And when I was walking through there, I said, hey, I know how to run that. I ran a small one at Omega. And he goes, that's great news, because I don't want to lose a welder to run this. And I was like, well, I don't know how to weld, so I think I'm your guy. And I've been there for 6 years, and it's worked out really well.
There's something how that works.
That's awesome, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So you're working. You told me you just took an office job.
Yeah.
And so should be a little healthier for you.
Yeah, I can actually come home and exercise again. And you guys were telling me how younger you thought I looked or whatever. Well, I was always doing triathlon. I was always running, biking, swimming, that kind of stuff. But it got to the point, you get home from work, you're tired. You can't do that stuff anymore. So since I moved up to the office, it's like, I actually have a little energy when I get home. Right. So hopefully I can keep at it.
Well, so I listened to a few of your podcasts. One of my favorite was when you guys reviewed Blind. You and your family reviewed Blind. That was
the Blind movie review.
Yeah, the blind movie review. I hadn't thought about that. I like that. The Blind movie review. That's a good way. That's a little good humor in that as well.
Yeah.
But I loved how you involved your family in that, and they shared some of their favorite movies. And tell us about the movie Blind.
The Blind. Everyone loved Duck Dynasty. Well, not everybody, but most people. It was a big hit, and everyone in that family has a testimony. Phil changed the duck hunting world by patenting that duck call with the double reed system, and it actually, you could use it and sound like ducks rather than sounding like the traditional duck call. And so he kind of changed. He was the Michael Jordan of duck hunting. Well, when you look into their family and you know their story, Phil was a fallen down, violent drunk, and that family was headed for your typical broken home, divorce, kids don't see their dad situation. And something changed. Something changed with Phil, and obviously that was the Lord. And when they do The Blind, they didn't go through Hollywood. They didn't have a huge budget or anything like that. They did it themselves. They have their own small production company that does their podcast called Unashamed. And they filmed this movie, and they did a really great job portraying how Phil was, what he was going through, and the fact that it took one pastor who was brave enough to go into a bar and share the gospel with Phil, and Phil accepted. Phil repented. He did a 180, and it wasn't right away, but it set the trajectory of that family on a completely different level. There would have been no, duck commander business, no revolutionary duck call. There would have been no Duck Dynasty. Every member of their family is involved in either adoption, pro-life movement. They do so much good stuff to help struggling people, hurting people. They would have never had that platform had their story not went the way it did. And they showed a very good portion of that in The Blind. And so, as we're leading up to that movie, I was just thrilled that my kids would want to go see it with me, that it didn't look too boring to them or something. The meaning, what do they call it, a double entendre? Mm-hmm. The blind is saying, like, spiritually, Phil was blind. That's all he wanted to do was live life his way. But it was also, there's a big scene in the movie where they're just in a duck blind, and that's when he's talking to his friend who was shortly going to pass away. They didn't know, and one of his old drinking buddies, and just asking him, Phil, what happened to you? And he gets to give God all the glory for that, and it's just an incredible movie for being a small budget production. Mm-hmm. Very powerful. I said it's probably one of the most powerful movies I've ever seen, and they picked up on that. They said as soon as it started, I was kind of doing this number just because of the way he was talking and the things he was saying. Is like, I can relate to that. I was headed a whole different way, and people think, oh, I'm this great guy, or a good speaker, a good preacher, whatever it may be, or a good mentor to young people. Well, how did I get there if I was headed here? Mm-hmm. And that to me is just, my goodness, I give God all the glory for that.
The Roberts have developed an incredible media company with books and with movies.
All their books are good.
Duck Dynasty and they, like you say, they've built. They're a sporting goods company. I'm sure the sporting good companies become second compared to what they've done now. What year did that movie come out?
The Blind, that would have just been the end of last summer, right? Like September, October, probably. The Blind did. Duck Dynasty was running back in like 2012 through 2017.
Right.
So
is that a movie you could take like a junior high church group to see or something like? Would that be good for them? Or
I would say so. I would say junior high and up for sure. Yeah, younger kids. There's a couple violent scenes of spousal abuse, but junior high, high school, it would definitely hit home. Going through junior high, high school, you just think, hey, all your peers are doing certain things. Well, if you can show them how dangerous alcohol really is, some people cannot handle it, and you could show them, well, this is, even though it looks normal to you now, everyone's doing it, this is how you could end up. I would definitely. I took my whole family. My youngest daughter was 12 at the time. So
how did you hear about this movie?
Well, I listened to the Unashamed podcast.
Oh, okay, you listened to the podcast.
Yep, and that's Phil and Jace and Al, and they have a relative in North Carolina, Zach, who's kind of the head of the production company. Yeah. So it's a Bible study podcast, but it's also just kind of like what you guys do, current events, things going on. They have guests on, stuff like that, but they also work their way through portions of the Bible from time to time. So as they were working on the movie, I was getting updates constantly, just waiting for it, it's getting the trailer, and so I was hyping it up up as much as I could for them.
Right.
And I even sent them stuff. That's some of the marketing for your podcast that I've learned is sometimes you got to like at them or hashtag or do these different things.
Yeah.
So maybe they see it. And then if they see it, since you sent it, now 1 million people might get to see something that the What Is Up, if that episode you like so much, if the Robertsons ever saw that and mentioned it on their podcast, that you guys got to check out the What Is Up podcast. This guy did a whole, it could raise my platform. And so my wife and kids help me with the social media. I'm a complete idiot when it comes to that. But
we had a wonderful guest on, Mike Sorensen. He's an English teacher in the Sumner Fredericksburg School District.
Okay.
And he is a autograph collector. And he has thousands. I mean, over 30,000. I don't remember the exact number.
Either,
but we threw names at him. He just, I've got him. I've got him.
Really?
I've got him. I've got him.
Wow.
And he doesn't collect them to sell them. He collects them to collect them.
Sure.
He has, like he gets high school kids autographs, but he also he became good friends with the Atlanta Braves manager and the Atlanta Braves pitchers. He went to Chicago when they were in Chicago and had dinner with them. Zach Johnson, he goes to Zach Johnson golf outing in Cedar Rapids when he has that, gets all their autographs. I mean, and he had 2 daughters, or he has 2 daughters, and he uses his daughters as
to get autographs. Some people won't give them to a guy, but if the little kid goes up,
my wife used to get them at Wrigley when she was a kid. No one else could get them. My father-in-law would cram her between the barrier and the fence, and Andre Dawson, Ryan Sandberg, whoever, she could get them. Man.
It's amazing.
It is the kids, the young girls, they can get them.
But the reason I tell you that, Bubba, is I really think he would be a good interview for your podcast.
Mike Sorensen.
Mike Sorensen, he teaches in the middle school in Fredericksburg, and I can give you the contact information for him. And he would enjoy your podcast.
Good.
A great interview.
Was
a fun person to be around. Great sense of humor.
Yeah, I claim to say we're just talking real life with real people. You don't have to be some big name. Like, obviously, the bigger the name, the more views you get or whatever. But I had a local kid on recently, Brock Biesecker, and it blew away Tara Thomas Getman's episode views. And how could that be? Because people wanted to hear what that kid had to say. They knew about his family life. They knew about his struggles, and they wanted to see, what his rise in kickboxing is like. How does that beat Tara Thomas Getman, a former news anchor, in views? So I don't need the huge name. I'm perfectly happy talking with high school teachers, retired. It doesn't matter. I'll have anybody on.
Right. Well, so let's talk. Let me ask you this. You asked your children this. I'll ask you this question. So, your top 5 movies of all time.
Oh my goodness! You gotta give me some warning. I'm notorious.
He doesn't ever give warning.
No, there's no warning coming.
I'm notorious for never being able to narrow it down. Like, I couldn't give you number 1. I can give you like my top 5, but I couldn't put them in order. Oh man, I wish I would have brought the list with me.
I'll blow over you a little bit and get you ready. So my top 5. Dale, get yours ready here.
All right.
I got my top 5 is Hoosiers.
Okay.
Is number 5. It used to be number 1. I coached basketball for 30 years. So then Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, that's good.
Is number 4. Number 3, I really like, and I don't know if you call it a movie or not. The series. Oh my gosh, and I'm having a block. The series on Netflix about the cartel down in Arkansas.
Okay.
And I'm having a block, but that is number 3. Number 2 is I love the. Gosh, now I'm having a block. It is 2 and 1. So Rip would go, and we'll save 2 and 1.
My number 1 movie I have always loved is Shane. I remember seeing that as a little kid, and when he had that gunfight at the end, and he twirls that pistol around and drops it. I always loved that movie. And my kids grew up with that movie. Love of the Game is my favorite baseball movie. Kevin Costner, because he actually looks like a guy that knows how to play baseball.
Yeah.
And one of the few baseball movies where it's not embarrassing to watch the actors throw the ball.
Right.
I mean, he looks like a pitcher. He throws well. This sort of thing. The catcher does a lousy job.
Yeah.
But he did great. I was blown away by The Godfather. I thought that was an excellent film.
Right.
The way they made it. And like you, I like Shawshank. And I thought Jaws was an excellent movie. I was into that all the time. Jurassic Park I really liked when I saw that. The Fugitive.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that, and when I saw that, I said, okay, Tommy Lee Jones is going to get an Academy Award for that role, and he did. And that's the only time I've ever been right about that sort of thing.
Right.
But I thought he just did a fantastic job. I did not know much about him at that time.
Yeah.
But I was just really impressed by the job he did. So
Al College Roommate. Al Gore's College Roommate.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and I watch a lot of movies to this day. I watched Father Goose today with Cary Grant. I thought that's a great movie too. And so I will still watch lots and lots of movies. And so I could, if you had a list, I could probably pick out 50. I thought was really, really good. So
we'll be back to Cary Grant.
Oh, okay.
All right, your turn.
Okay. So everyone knows I'm like a huge Christmas guy, big into decorating the house, all that stuff. So I'll throw my Christmas movies definitely are towards the top there. It's a Wonderful Life. That's up there. And there's one similar to it that me and my wife, we just love, called The Family Man. And it's kind of like it's a Wonderful Life, but it's not. It's different and it's newer. So them two are in my top 5. The movie Miracle about the 1980 hockey, that's definitely in there.
You could have been born yet for that.
No, I wasn't. The next year, yeah.
I can remember that. He wasn't born, Reaper. Yeah.
That was crazy, though. That was, I would have loved to have been there for that. And then a couple more would probably be, I love true stories. So Woodlawn, if you've never heard of Woodlawn, it's a true story about what was going on in the 60s and 70s when schools were starting to integrate. And this was one of the bigger schools in Alabama. And Alabama was, the peak for racial tension and all that. And what happened to that school over a couple of years with the football players getting together and touchdown Tony Curtis. He ended up going to the NFL. And there were things happening there behind the scenes that were bringing black kids, white kids together. And you can guess who was behind that. Someone who was brave enough to go into a school and tell the kids there's a better way. You don't have to hate each other. And they did a true story movie about that called Woodlawn. It's definitely in my top 5. Man, if I were to throw some more in there, I don't know. That's a good start. Passion of the Christ has always impressed me. It's not the kind of movie you watch over and over again, but the way they all spoke Aramaic and learned the language and portrayed that, it's life-changing when you watch that. But The Blind, I would say, it had such an impact on me last year that, I couldn't even talk to my kids on the way home. Mm-hmm. So, that's what, 5, 6, somewhere in there for sure.
Mississippi Burning is one.
Yeah.
Or is number 2. I really like that. Probably as the train goes through our background here, you got to like the sound effects that we have. We don't have as good sound effects as What Is Up does, but we have our own. I like the Raiders trilogy, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, Indiana Jones and that?
Indiana Jones and that stuff.
I hated the second one, but I thought the first one and the third one were really
the first
good.
and the third were really good.
The second one was, that guy reaching and pulling his heart out.
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe in that, but all the other stuff I believed. Not that.
Right.
But I didn't like that one at all.
See, and that was the first one I saw, and that one creeped me out when I was a kid.
Yeah. So
because that guy looked rough.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But that Indiana Jones and Mississippi Burning both came out the same year.
Okay.
And that was a heck of a time in the theater.
Right. See, and didn't they just have another one? Didn't he release one last year? Another Indiana Jones?
Yeah, well, there was a fourth one.
Yeah.
They were in South America someplace, and he had his kid with him, his ex. I don't know. I wasn't impressed with that.
It didn't do as well.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there was a independent movie out called Sound of Freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
And Hollywood didn't want to touch it and all this stuff. And here it was highlighting a true story of a Department of Homeland Security agent, Tim Ballard, and his efforts to bring down child sex trafficking and all all this stuff. And I thought, why wouldn't Hollywood get behind this story? This guy going in to South America, and he got tired of just putting away the bad guys. He wanted to reunite the kids with the parents. And so he ended up having to leave his job with the government to do this. And that movie outperformed that new Indiana Jones.
I suppose.
And that was kind of a shock to the Hollywood companies to say, you guys need to start reevaluating what you're doing.
Well, don't you think Hollywood doesn't want to put movies out that make people feel uncomfortable, unfortunately?
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
It is, that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
They're afraid of. They fear the backlash.
Right. But that to me was a true story about a true issue. All the Rambo movies, what did Sylvester Stallone do? He tried to highlight something that was going on, some humanitarian crisis somewhere in all of his Rambo movies, even his later ones, that were kind of separate from the beginning ones.
Yeah.
This Sound of Freedom is exactly that. This child sex trafficking thing is like the biggest form of slavery anywhere in any part of the world at any time in history.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, why didn't they want to highlight that? Yeah, it would make people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I also noticed this summer, what's the highest grossing movie? I think it was Twisters.
Yeah.
Twisters had no messaging, they could have went the climate route, and they really didn't. It was a tornado every day, which is completely and I loved it. I loved it. It made a ton of money, and I think that kind of showed Hollywood, like, maybe we can just start producing good stuff, that people want to see, and we don't got to put our messaging in it, and people will come back to the theaters and watch this stuff.
Yeah.
So here you go. Here's a question. You mentioned Cary Grant. So who like you have Henry Fonda and Cary Grant and James Stewart, and then you have the next group of Brad Pitt and
They're from different times, though.
Yeah, but I mean, Brad Pitt and who was in
Affleck.
Ocean's
George Clooney.
George Clooney,
Yeah.
and that group. But now, who's the next group of actors that you would say will take their place?
Yeah, see, I have no idea because I don't keep track. I kind of quit at 2000 or so. But I don't know any of these young people. I watch Jeopardy, and they have the young bands or the new bands or the new actors. I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
So who would you say who are the
Who's
other?
going to be?
Is it Affleck? I mean, Affleck,
No, he's done. It's younger people.
He's
It's
getting divorced again. Did you see
He
that?
is,
Yeah, married her again and then divorced.
Yeah.
It's more guys like Glenn Powell that were in the Top Gun sequel, Maverick. He was one of the main guys in that. He was in Twisters. He gets a lot of leading roles. Michael B. Jordan, the guy that was in the Creed movies, he gets a lot of roles. There's been a passing of the guard for sure.
Marrying a woman you've already divorced. I heard somebody say, it's sort of like going to the refrigerator and taking the milk out, and it's sour, but you put it back in the refrigerator thinking, maybe it'll be better tomorrow.
Welcome, Bubba, to our show.
He just bashed Ben Affleck. I love it.
Well, I knew a lady. Well, she taught up here. She remarried a guy she'd already divorced, and then divorced again within a year. And she said, that's the biggest mistake I've made. So, well, I knew somebody in LaPorte City. They did it 3 times with the same. And so I said, you're not as bad off as that guy. So,
my dad's best friend did it 4 times.
did he really?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, my daughter got married this summer, and I got to do this father of the bride speech, and she calls me a professional yapper. Mm-hmm. And so she knew I was going to do something special, and I tried to. In that speech, I got to highlight some of the things like how I alluded to earlier. Me and my wife, my girlfriend in high school, we did everything we could to hurt each other. And when we talk about these repeat divorces, it's like there's a way to do it right. And it's wrote down in the Bible. It's hard to do. It goes against our very nature, but there is a right way to treat our spouses. And I remember in pre-marriage counseling, our pastor told us there's a way to fight fair. And I was like, you got an honest pastor if he's going to tell you and your wife are going to fight. Because at that time, you're thinking it's going to be nothing but sunshine and rainbows. And he goes, no, there's going to come times where you may love her, but you don't like her, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. How are you going to deal with it then? There's a right way to deal with it. And that's why I just think people are missing out, trying to get remarried 3-4 times. Yeah. You got to try something different because there is a right way to handle relationships. And the way of the world, it just doesn't have it.
My wife and I stayed together because we made a pact that whoever wants out of the marriage has to take the kid, and so that kept us together. So,
my dad's friend, his name was Lloyd. I won't say his last name, but I'll never forget. My dad would invite Lloyd over for supper all the time because he was always fighting with his wife.
didn't your mom think he was a bad influence on your dad, or I?
Well,
You rub off on him a little.
well, I can remember Mom yelling at my dad, "You always invite that old broken down cowboy. He swears every other word." And I sat at supper that night and I listened, and Lloyd swore every other word. He did.
Oh man,
He did. It was. That is neat. You can find a fair way to argue.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
there is fair. So.
Is it like home and family classes in high school or something? Isn't there a place for that sort of thing? And I don't think they do that, as far as I know. I mean, they did when I was in high school.
they still do a little home ec,
yeah,
but nothing.
where like interpersonal relationships or something, or I don't know. I mean,
No.
we had a class when we were seniors. We had to take about life insurance and
Okay.
buying stocks and taking care of money and this sort of thing, writing checks. And I don't think they do that anymore.
They
either,
don't.
'cause
We
these
were just talking about this last night.
Kids come out and the little things you think everybody should know, they have to learn them the hard way, one way or the other. And so, of course, they say nobody's going to have to write checks anymore.
They
So-
do
Right.
have
Yeah,
a class like that at
Do they?
Jessup.
Okay.
Well, they should.
They should.
That's
Yeah,
good.
I
Yeah,
just
my
think that's
daughter's
so good. So-
We were just talking to some friends because we're thinking about doing some homeschooling with our youngest daughter for the remainder. At least try it for this year and see how it goes. Me and my wife were all public school. Our other 3 kids public school. And my daughter asked a question before she got out of high school about interest rates, and that sparked an hour-long conversation about interest. And we have our opinions about credit and how to do it the right way and all that stuff, which is mainly stay away from it. Don't even get a car loan. Have your credit score be 0 or have it be 850.
Yeah.
That's the goal. She said on that 1 hour conversation on the couch, she learned more about personal finance than all of high school. And I said, well, we had that class too. You learned how to write a check. You learned how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
That's the basics right there. If you can do that and learn how to do a budget, you're good. And at least they haven't got that. My kids haven't got that anywhere but at home. Mm-hmm. So bring it back.
Well, I think there's just a lot of that's not academic, but it's something you ought to know
Real
when you
world.
graduate from high
Yeah.
school. I don't know.
I agree. I tell my kids do a lot of job shadowing too, because I don't want them to hit 18, graduate, and they have no idea what they want to do. I'd rather them have already went to a few different places and seen what they do, what it takes to be an engineer, what it takes to, what it's going to look like if, they work at this place or that place or maybe in HR or whatever it may be. You don't have to work there. Just call them up, see if you can come in and do a job shadow for somebody. How else are you going to get the experience without working there, decide you don't like it, then quit?
Bobby, you mentioned that you are a public speaker, that I heard on one of your podcasts that you fill in for the preacher when he's gone.
Yep.
And you speak to the local children down at Jessup Bible Fellowship.
Yep.
Do you see yourself going in that direction someday?
I don't right now because I've been leading kids ministry since I was like 20, and so you're kind of up in front of them and you got to talk, you got to do all that stuff. I like speaking to everybody. I don't have a problem with speaking. I love speaking to the youth group at Jessup once a year. As far as like becoming a pastor and preaching full time, like I've had my opportunities and just kind of asked, look, like, this is what you want me to do, show me, and it wasn't it. But when I was leaving a couple of years ago from Jessup after I was speaking, that's when the whole podcast thing came to me. And I was like, I think this is where I need to be right now. Maybe he changes his mind and he tells me something different, but I have relationships with people in the office at work. I had relationships with people in the metal shop at work. I can do a whole lot of good there and still do the podcast and do plenty of speaking. And I'm open. If anyone invites me to speak, I'll speak. But if God wanted me to do that more big time, like if Blaze Media or somebody calls up and says, hey, we like your show, let's put some money behind it, well, then that'd be a serious conversation.
Sure, yeah.
Until something big like that happens, I honestly think I'm right where I'm supposed to be I'm probably doing a little bit more than I should between church and family and the podcast and all. But I had a really wise pastor, Dan Worsema, down there in Cedar Rapids. He told me, Bubba, find your red line and get right under it. And he goes, that's where you got to learn to get comfortable right there. So you might be always doing this. You might be the leader of this. You might be serving here. You might be doing this. Just don't get above that red line and get burned out. It's okay to say no and stay
That was
under.
very good advice.
It was.
I never heard it put that way, but I think that's very sound.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
If you want to be effective, you got to be doing stuff, but you can't do too much either.
Well, you talk about one of the main pillars of Christianity there, and people don't, that's not the verbiage in Christianity, but like the pillars of Islam are like Ramadan and the the admission of one God and things like that. And the pillars of Christianity are to teach the Word of God and to ask forgiveness and things like that.
Sure.
And you are practicing a pillar. You by what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's why I say to come on my podcast, we don't have to agree on every issue at all, and we're not. I'm not doing it for clicks. I'm not going to build up some sort of dramatic show. No, I want to hear what you have to say, your opinions, whether it aligns with my worldview or not. Most people were somewhere close, but most of the world is a lot more center than the media kind of makes us out to be, because we all get up and, you guys are retired, but me and your producer, we get up, we go to work, we do our stuff. The world functions just fine. It's because we're not as bad as it seems like out there. We're actually just pretty capable people of agreeing to disagree and move along. It's those loud voices on the outside edges that are just making it seem like we have to hate each other, and we don't.
We had last week we had a nice, the man that stepped in a little bit ago, Dale was gone, and we had a nice conversation. We both came from different sides. How do you see how public election is being practiced right now for the presidency?
When I was a kid, not that I paid that much attention, but I don't remember it being like this. I remember hearing a lot more talk about balancing the budget, and that's something no one says.
Yeah.
It's now more about the fighting. And so I try and block that out and just focus on policy and what you've done. Like personally, there's stuff I'm going to find wrong with everybody, and personally, there's going to be things people find wrong with me. But if we're talking about being elected for public office, okay, what's your stance on the policy, on the issues? Whoever I agree with more on that, it usually comes pretty clear to me. And then their personal stuff I have to deal with kind of after that, because once they're in office, the policies that they practice and they're going to try and implement, it's going to affect us. So I'm going to look at their policy first, and all that other personal stuff. Yeah, I think we could be doing a lot better with our politics in America. It's gotten hyper polarized, and it just, I've said it with many guests on my show, like, it doesn't we don't have to yell, fight, scream, shoot, all that if we disagree. Right. The world will continue on if we just agree to disagree. It really will. I don't know why we've bought into this thing that we have to be enemies if we disagree. And that was kind of one of the other pillars of my podcast as well. I actually have a slide. If you watch it, sometimes a slide will pop up, and it's two people sitting on a hill, and it just says, just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I hate you.
Right.
It seemed like 80s and 90s, that was a little more reality than it is now in the 2000s and beyond. It's wild.
It is. It has changed a lot.
Well, yeah, and the main thing they always talk about is Bill Clinton and the Bush family, how they were Republican and Clinton was Democrat, but yet how they got along so well and agreed on so many things. Excuse me, where was it George H.W. Bush thought Bill was like one of his sons, and so that was something you didn't see coming, but it worked out really well, I think, for the Bush family and for Clinton and for the country also, that when the Bushes were president, Clinton could see some things they were doing that were positive, and he would say so. You don't get that anymore.
No, you'd get vilified if you gave the other side credit for anything. And that's, I've had people, I listen to a lot of American Family Radio, and there's a guy that comes on in the afternoons, usually on the drive home, and he opens his show, and he's a real energetic black guy from the South, and he just, so it just kind of makes you feel good just listening to him. And he says, let me remind you, you're driving home from your part-time job, you're going home to your full-time job. And he kind of puts it in perspective right there. He goes, your part-time job is where you generate an income. Your full-time job is whatever you're going home to, whether you're a dad, husband, member of the community, whatever. That's your full-time job. And he goes, whatever's going on in your house is way more important than what's going on in the White House. If we all kind of worried about our own houses, making sure they're in order, teaching our kids right, teaching them to think critically about issues, to know what they believe, why they believe it, that you don't have to yell, scream, fight, rant, rave, all that. Like, the world would fix itself in a real hurry if we just focused on our homes rather than what's going on in the White House. Like, that is, you start it more locally, I think that hits everything else. That hits your school boards, your city governments, your state government. Start small.
Yeah, I like that. That's great advice. That's great advice. Well, Bubba, is there anything that you want us to know about your podcast, about you or your family that we haven't asked?
Oh my goodness. No, I think I mentioned them all, and I mentioned that. Yeah, I love my wife. I love my kids. I don't deserve them, but life isn't always perfect. Don't try and hope I didn't paint myself as this. Oh, if you're a Christian, things are going to be perfect. No, that's not how it works. Life's hard. Life's tough. But
I'll plug your podcast again.
Yeah.
When does it drop? Tell us about it a little bit more, and where can people find it?
You can find it on the major ones: Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, although the YouTube videos aren't that great. Until I get going with video, I don't know. Somebody might help me out with that someday. I try and drop a new episode every Friday. I've only missed...
This is What Is Up is what you have to
Yep, What Is Up podcast right there. Okay. What Is Up. If you can't find it, you just type in my name, Bubba Seaman, behind it, and then it'll come up. But I've noticed how the algorithms in the last year, at the beginning, you could type in the title, my name, everything, and it wouldn't come up for nothing. But once you start getting views and followers and 5-star reviews, then it's a lot easier. Yeah. But yeah, I try and drop a new episode every Friday. It's mostly interview based. I think I've maybe done half a dozen solo episodes. That's it. People don't want to hear just me. I want to have a conversation with people like you guys do. And so yeah, every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube. I've got an email. You can always email me, whatisuppodcast@gmail.com, if you want to come on the show. If you got an idea for a future guest, like you said, Mike Sorensen, email me that kind of stuff. If you listen to it and you have an opinion, email me that. I want to hear people's takes on things. We do a lot of fun stuff. I let people share their story. That's kind of the first part. That'll be one whole week, usually an hour or less. And then we come back for a part 2 the following week. I mean, we record it all in one day, but the following Friday is the part 2, and that's where I have fun segments all lined up that they pick out, from a list, and I put them in different situations and ask them different questions, and we go through all that and have some fun with it. And then we end every episode with the What Is Up segment. And that's a chance where I give the guest to ask what is up with anything. It could be serious. It could have been as serious as the vaccines, as all that kind of crazy stuff, the pandemic, whatever. Or it could be, something much lighter. What is up with, why are we putting roundabouts in everywhere? Some people just hate those things. And so we conclude with a more deep conversation about something, what is up with something, and it's their choice, and we have a lot of fun with it. It's a good listen, no matter what you believe, where you're from. Don't think you have to be just like me to enjoy it. I have a lot of people that don't think like me that listen to it and enjoy it, and just try and do something good with it.
I will do that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thanks for coming in, Bubba.
Thank you guys for the invite.
The Steve Brown Arts Center is a 501c3, and if you'd like to donate or have an idea for the event, go to the SteveBrownArtsCenter.org and follow the link. If you have news or would like to sponsor us, email us at jim@SteveBrownArtsCenter.org or call 319-290-0241 and leave a message with Bubba Seaman, not Richard Simmons. I'm Jim Gillespie and Dale Reber, and producer Blake Tempest. As always, thanks to Kelly C. Haas for allowing us to record here at 591 Co-work. Thanks to the audience for bringing these stray dogs into your day, and remember, each day is about little victories.